just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down tonight. Only just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We gonna light it up now.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the HVAC Guide live show. Got a fun one for you tonight. A little different than something I've ever done before. Got to thinking this past week, what is something we've never done, but someone would get value out of? And I think tonight, if you tune in, if you happen to catch this show, you are going to get some value out of this show. So before we get started, let me say hello to Gary and Bob and Fit. That's what we'll call you, FYT Fit. So welcome to the show. If you are joining us, feel free to say hello in the chat. And I always like to hear from where you're at in the country. That's always kind of fun for me personally. So hello to all you guys. Hey to Ryan. But yeah, so we're going to go into some things tonight. We're going to talk about comparing quotes, comparing HVAC systems like never before. Things that I've kind of touched on or glazed over in my videos. But tonight, I've got a whole hour with you and you'll have a chance to ask questions, but we're going to get more detailed, more in the nitty gritty. So if you are getting quotes or if you in the future start to compare heating and air systems, maybe this will help understand some of that. We'll also go through the process. We'll go through the process of getting those quotes, how to deal with contractors, how to get what you want, how to deal with someone that's not giving you what you want, and things like that. So again, feel free to ask questions as we go through this. And if you stick around, the folks that are here at the end of tonight's show, I'm going to give away a gift that I've never given away. It's a gift that we give folks when they sign up to our website, which I'm trying to point to the sign behind me. Our website, newhvacguide.com. We actually give away 3 gifts. When someone signs up on that website, we just give them 3 gifts out the gate. And one of those gifts I'm going to give away tonight. So if you are here joining us, that's just a special treat. It'll go well with tonight's theme, and we'll get into what that gift is. So those of you that are here, if I get to the end of the show and I forget, how you get that gift though, is you are going to have to send me your email. So you'll have to send me your email so I can send that gift to you. And again, I'll get into what that is and all that good stuff. So Fit says, been looking for an inverter heat pump system and options available at competitive cost. Daikin, Bosch, ACIQ, Goodman, etc. Awesome. So hopefully you'll get a little value out of tonight. Ryan says, I have some quotes from this year and last year. I can email you for future comparisons if you'd like them. Okay, awesome. Thanks, pal. Yeah, I actually did a video recently where we showed at the end of the video some of the quotes that we have gotten from folks that sign up to our website, folks like you, and some of the contractors that have sent them quotes. And I thought it was kind of cool because we were able to see the differences, not just from the systems, not just the sizes and the types of technology, but also the different parts of the country. And so you could see the cost differences, from someone living in, maybe a smaller, more rural, you know, state with lower cost of living, if you will, and then maybe a state that has a higher cost of living closer to a city. And so we kind of went through some of that. So if you haven't seen that video, I think that video is called like good versus best systems or something like that. It's one of our last 5 videos, and highly recommend checking that out if you haven't seen it. But yeah, let's dive into this a little bit. As we go through this, again, feel free to ask questions, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, a lot of folks, when they're gathering quotes, it's a little overwhelming. I know when we're helping people on our website, there's a lot of confusion on what exactly they're looking at. And I would challenge you to do a little bit of homework on your part to understand, if nothing else, what each part is, what it's called. Because I'll get folks sometimes and they'll say, yeah, the air handler's not running. And I'm like, oh, the air handler. Yeah, the part outside. And I'll say, well, the air handler typically, when we're talking my language, is not outside. It's inside. It's the indoor unit. And so I would recommend, and I would challenge you to, if nothing else, learn what each device is called. In fact, I would even challenge heating and air guys on that front. I'll still to this day get actual professionals in our trade that call the outdoor unit the compressor. They'll say, yeah, the compressor's dirty. It needs to be cleaned up. And what they're talking about is the condenser coil or the heat pump coil. So I've just always thought that was kind of funny when they call that the compressor. Fit says, I've seen like 10 of your videos in the last week, continuing to learn questions, options, issues, etc. Awesome. Well, thank you for watching our videos and your support. Yeah, I think ultimately a lot of folks today, and this is not just homeowners, this is probably true for pros as well. And that is when they're comparing heating and air systems, they are using ratings such as SEER to compare those systems more than anything else. And I would say that is probably not the best representation always. And I'll tell you why. You could take 2 17 SEER systems, and if one of those is a single or 2 stage system and the other one is an inverter system, the inverter system, if it's a communicating inverter system, even if it's only 17 SEER, is going to be significantly more efficient just because of the technology in itself, being able to ramp down and barely run and all of that. Brito, hopefully I'm saying that right. Welcome to the show. Yeah, communicating systems. And I've talked about that in some of our videos, how, SEER is not necessarily the best representation of comparing systems on that front. Now, if you have 2 single stage systems, one's a 14 SEER and the other one's a 16 SEER, and they're both, again, same technology, then fine. Yes, the SEER of one system is going to be better than the other and most likely more efficient. But when we're talking about 2 very different technologies, it's hard to compare those systems. Hello to Dead Aim. Welcome to the show, pal. So that's the first thing I want to point out. When you're looking at ratings like SEER, for example, it's just not, you're not comparing apples to apples on that front. It would be almost like comparing gas mileage of a car to a hybrid vehicle, right? So a car that burns gas versus a car that was half electric, half gas. At the end of the day, if that system, if you're doing more highway miles in that car, sorry, this is just my heating and air brain trying to use an analogy. But if you're talking about a hybrid car that's mostly running off of the electric side of things, and it really never turns on the gas, it's really hard to compare those 2 cars and their gas mileage, if that makes sense. And so that's kind of the analogy I'll use when we're talking about comparing those heating and air systems. I'm not saying don't look at SEER, but I'm going to be looking at the technology. I'm going to be looking at other ratings such as HSPF, other ratings such as low ambient operation, especially if I live in a colder climate if I have a heat pump there, I want to know what temperature, that it can still heat at. You know, do I start to lose capacity at 20 degrees, 5 degrees, negative 13 degrees? Where is my threshold here? Because there's a big difference between those two, especially depending on what part of the country you're in. If I, in my area, have a heat pump that is 100% capacity and blowing warm all the way down to below 0 degrees, I'm rarely going to use any sort of auxiliary heat. And so that system became significantly more valuable to me, right? Regardless of what the SEER rating is. Ryan says homeowners have to compare, understand their climate, the heating and cooling performance COP. You beat me to it, pal. That was my next one, the COP, and capacity at different temperatures for the units they are buying. Understanding that is very important. I agree. I would say in our trade, homeowners have to, unfortunately, do more homework than any other investment they make, because it's not something you buy all the time, and the trade is changing so fast. I get frustrated when I hear I'll have folks comment on our videos and they'll say, your trade's really not that difficult. You act like it's so difficult to understand, and it's not that big of a deal. And I'm like, yeah, I know guys that have been doing this for decades and they still feel like they have lots to learn in our trade. So, you don't know what you don't know. And someone saying that, they just don't know, right? They don't understand all the, I mean, I was listening to a podcast today where they were going into the ins and outs of the power factor of a motor. And I'm like, this is like really getting into it, the actual electricity used, and comparing these motors and the actual power factor of those systems. And I would argue that most heating and air guys probably never even give that a second thought, that they've never even considered that. And that's okay. I'm not faulting them for that. I'm just saying that there's just so much to this trade. I would say I've learned more in the last 5 years than I learned in my first 15 years of doing this, because I'm really trying to master the craft, if that makes sense. I'm really trying to learn psychrometrics and airflow and, power factor and all the other, things in our trade and I don't even know that I'll ever feel like I'm mastered the trade. It's because it's changing so fast. The refrigerants, the new refrigerants, trying to really get down and understand those. And so it's a lot. Fitz says it's getting difficult now in zone 3 every year in January and February, when the circumpolar vortex brings 0 to 10 degrees for 10 plus days. Where exactly are you located, Fit, if you don't mind me asking? Which state are you in? Because yeah, I mean, a 5 degree day is pretty cold, Ohio. Yeah. So you guys do have some bitter winters at times. Do you have heat pumps in your area? Do you know? Are heat pumps a thing there? Just out of curiosity. Dead Aim says, how was your Daikin trip and new goodies of info you can share? Great question. It was awesome. I'm working on the video now. And I wish I could show it to you guys. I don't think I'm allowed, but it is one of my, I mean, me personally, it's probably my favorite video I've ever made. I mean, if I'm just being completely honest, and I know you guys are probably like, oh, you probably say that about all your videos. No, I really don't. I think that a lot of my videos have a lot of value, but I don't know that they are as fun to make. And I had a lot of fun making that video. The offices are literally right across the street from the White House and the Eisenhower office building, where the cabinet and the vice president and all of those folks work. So it's overlooking that. And we saw a lot of cool things while we were there. So I'm excited to launch that video. I'm really trying to have fun with that video and let that show through as well. So I don't know when that will launch, but I do know we're working on it. And I appreciate you asking. I can't wait for that video to launch. It's one of my favorite videos I've ever gotten to make. And to be honest with you, if I could only make those kinds of videos, that's probably what I would do, because we just had so much fun doing it, talking to really cool people, seeing really cool things. It was hot, so walking around, and I'm chubby, so that was a challenge, but we had a lot of fun making it. So we'll see what happens, and see if we get to make. They're telling me I may get to make more videos like that, but we'll see. So I do appreciate you asking, though. Ryan says homeowners need to understand what costs more in their area, natural gas or electricity. Would dual fuel make sense for them? Do they use their AC for only a short period and investing more on the heating? It's a good point, Ryan. I'll say this about dual fuel. If there's not a significant difference in price, and I would say a lot of times there's not, for that homeowner to go from an outdoor unit that's a straight AC to a heat pump, I would say almost always they should consider dual fuel. Now, I'm not saying they always should, and I'm not saying that there aren't situations where they definitely should, especially if they have propane, LP gas as their backup auxiliary heat source. If that's the case, if you have any sort of fuel, whether it's the old school oil or LP or anything delivered to your home, I would consider dual fuel. In fact, I remember only offering dual fuel to those customers when I had my business. But even with natural gas, it's still something that could, it's been pretty, pretty stable over the years, but you never know. The right person get elected, the right person, this or that happen, and all of a sudden prices of things like fossil fuels could change. So I would definitely not rule out dual fuel, even if you have natural gas and whether one of them is more budget friendly versus the other. So Ryan says, I'm actually evaluating if getting a simple single stage system with a whole house dehumidifier might be better for me in terms of upfront costs and maintenance than an inverter system. Well, upfront costs, I would say it's definitely going to be better. Ryan, I would check out some of your options with the non-communicating inverter stuff too. I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs of that, but there's newer options on that front too that are pretty interesting. Fit says there are plenty of developments like the one where this condo is that have no natural gas, about 150 condos, no gas at all. Interesting. Yeah, I would say back to the topic at hand, when you're comparing systems, I think that just understanding the type of technology, COP, as Ryan pointed out a moment ago, is another big one. I think if we fast forward 10 years from now, that might be the deciding factor when you're deciding which system you select. If you were going to compare a system, you may want to just only focus on COP. And COP, I'm actually looking up the exact definition. It does stand for coefficient of performance, but it's a ratio that measures how efficiently an HVAC system heats or cools. It's a unitless measurement that compares the amount of heating or cooling a system provides to the amount of electrical energy it uses. A higher COP indicates that the system is more efficient and uses less energy. So, yeah, there are systems out there that we're seeing up there. We're seeing COP ratings 3, 4, 5. If you get something with a COP of 5 or better, that is your utility bills are going to love you because you're going to be getting more out of that energy, if that makes sense. So I do think that COP is something to definitely keep an eye on, especially if you have a system that has a high COP rating. in comparisons. So comparing the systems, that's something to keep in mind. Dual fuel versus non-dual fuel, as we mentioned a moment ago. We're seeing more folks than ever consider ductless because of all the options for ductless that are out there. We're seeing mini splits that are ducted. They're mini splits and they're super efficient and quiet and all of that, but then they have duct work. And there's something to be said for that. But then you also have all of these options for ductless systems with the recessed models that have come out in the last handful of years, the floor mount models that, you don't necessarily always have to have something hanging up on your wall. You can have a floor mount model or a recess model or a ceiling cassette or, all the different options that we see today. And at times we're talking about fractions of the original utility bill use. And the other interesting thing, I was talking to a guy a couple weeks ago. He was actually giving a class on load calculations, and he simply, if I remember correctly, a third of the load calculation of the load was removed just by simply removing the ductwork out of the attic. And he was giving a class on VRV or VRF, depending on what brand you're installing. But Daikin invented it. It's called the VRV, and Daikin's the sponsor of our show tonight. So hello to them, and thank you to them. And but yeah, the VRV systems, just removing that ductwork from a hot attic automatically, took some of the load off of that system. Meaning, instead of needing, say, a 3-ton system, the home only needed a 2.5 or a 2-ton system, just because you took that ductwork out of there, which is absolutely insane if you think about it. Fit says heat pumps are quite common here, but usually have a 10 or 15 kW heat pack option installed. Yeah, so you got to have some good backup heat there. If you're watching us, feel free to drop a question in the chat. We've got a good little conversation going so far. I wanted to call tonight's show the ultimate guide to buying HVAC. When we get back from our little break I'm going to take here, we're going to talk more about dealing with the contractor moving forward, and that gift that I want to give you guys tonight. So let's go ahead real quick. I already mentioned who our sponsor is tonight, and thank the sponsor of the show by paying the bills and showing a quick clip here.
Daikin Fit is so quiet, you'll definitely notice by not really noticing at all. Save space, save energy, save interruptions. Enjoy the game-changing efficiency of the Daikin Fit. It cools, dehumidifies, and heats so efficiently, it even keeps your energy bills comfortable. Daikin Fit.
Awesome sauce. Ryan says, what do you think about comparing single or two-stage equipment with a whole home dehumidifier versus communicating system or non-communicating? Some pros say in certain areas a dehumidifier is still recommended with an inverter. That's very true. An inverter system is not going to replace a dehumidifier. If installed properly, do some of them dehumidify better? Absolutely. But it'll never replace the need or the want of a dehumidifier that's meant to just simply dehumidify the home. Hello to Wink. Good to see you, pal. I haven't seen you in a while, so thanks for joining us. Ryan says, do you still think the communicating system is always better? I'm in North Carolina, by the way. I think it's always better on many fronts as long as it's installed properly. If you have, say, undersized ductwork and you're going to put a system with a variable speed motor in there, then that brings its own challenges with high static and all of that good stuff. Fit says, how to find a competent independent contractor who is actually qualified to do an uncommon system in this market, like a Daikin, Bosch, or ACIQ, etc. I tell you, I might get in trouble for this, but I tell folks all the time, I would not want to be anybody's guinea pig. If you live in an area where it's harder to find a contractor that has installed a high-end system, I wouldn't want to be their first. As horrible as that sounds, I am in love with some of these systems that have come out and the energy it can save homeowners and all of the ins and outs and benefits that you can get from installing one of these systems. But still at the end of the day, I don't know that I would want to be there first, right? Jeff says, is the Daikin Fit and the Amana S the same system? Pretty much. It's not exactly the same as far as the controllers and some of the accessories, but it's very, very similar, if not the same. Yiba. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. I'm going to call you Yee. Okay. Yee says, I'm in Central Florida. I want to buy and install my own and use a handyman to do the gas work. What is your recommendation for a 2.5 ton units I can buy online? Oh, that's a loaded question. I don't know that I have any recommendations on that front, pal. That's a very loaded question. If you are competent enough to install a system correctly, then I can tell you this. I would, if you're going to go that route, if you're going to go DIY, I would do some homework on the reputation that company has and their support of their folks after the fact. There are some of these companies running around selling DIY systems, and the biggest issue that I have seen is one of them in particular. Once they sell the system, they're very hard to answer their phone, and they're very hard to even order a part or honor their warranties after that. And so that's not me talking. That's me regurgitating information that's already out there. So do a little homework on those companies. But other than that, I'm not saying there aren't some good ones out there. I just know there's one in particular that, they're obviously not good folks. They don't even advertise correctly. I'll just move on from that. Ghost, welcome to the show, says the quality of the install will dictate the life more than anything. 100%. I don't disagree with that. And Fit says, does that company start with an A or an H? Neither one. It starts with an M. Ryan says, I'm sure I'll need to upgrade my duct work with any new system, especially an inverter. So I'm preparing for that expense. I won't buy from any company that doesn't show me a duct plan or manual D. I was just talking to somebody last week on our guide. We've been talking back and forth, and he has decided to do exactly what you guys are saying. And I can't fight him on that. You guys know how I feel about DIY. I'm not always a fan of it, but he paid a company $20,000 and he has a lot of mess to clean up. And one of those things is they never did a proper load calculation. So we don't even have step 1 done, and he's on step 9, and he's having to tear ductwork out and do a bunch of different things. And so, yes, he's going the DIY route, and I'm trying to help him through some of that. I really wish he would just find a really good pro. But at the end of the day, I can also understand why he might be a little gun shy at this point. And so if you are capable of doing some of those things yourself, maybe, just maybe, it might not be a horrible thing to at least know what you did, even if it's not necessarily up to snuff, just because you know what you did. And if it needs to be redone, I'm afraid they will show up and wing my ductwork. Yeah. I mean, I think that brings us into if I were to, back to the theme of our show, if I were to give you an ultimate guide to buying HVAC, and that is, there are things that I want done and I would not compromise on. I want a load calculation, and I want you to show it to me, even if I've got to pay for it. I want a load calculation. I want to know that you're using a ductulator. The guy that I'm talking about that we're helping on our website right now, he says that the contractor just kept saying to him, well, we do this every day. This is nothing new to us. We do this every day. We can cut corners because we know that it will work. And he's like, that doesn't make me feel very good about all of this. And I was like, yeah, I get it. I don't blame you. Maria says, I bought a Goodman online and had our handyman install it in my mom's rental, but he is very experienced. He completely remodeled his own home. Fit says, same problem here, Ryan, looking for a qualified independent contractor who will do a proper duct review and load study and is qualified and equipped to install Bosch or Daikin, etc. Goodman hasn't been bad for me. I've heard decent things about Oxbox. The interesting thing about Oxbox is if you go back to Ameristar a few years ago, that's essentially what an Oxbox is. So when Ameristar became American Standards or Trane's, one of Trane's budget-friendly brands, and they were, rebranding some of the spine fin coil systems here for the Run True or the Ameristar lineup, Oxbox is that, that imported unit that used to be Ameristar. So that's kind of interesting. Maria says, don't get Linux. I bought one for my house and the compressor went bad after 3 years. Thank God it was still under warranty. Interesting. Let's get back to the contractor for just a moment. I'll say this, if you weren't here at the beginning of our show, we're going to be sharing a gift, if you will. When folks sign up for our website, newhvacguide.com, we give away 3 gifts. And I've never done this before, but I'm going to give you one of those gifts tonight. I'm going to give it to you. And here's how you get it. You email me your email address, and I'm going to put my email address in the comments. HVAC Guide. And you'll get a prompt back that basically says that this email is, not monitored and you won't get a response back, sort of deal. But my team, if you send your email to that email address, then my team will get your email address to me and we will make sure that you get the gift. And here's what the gift is. When folks sign up for our website, we give them 3 gifts. The first gift is we give them a questionnaire that they can use to compare contractors. So imagine you're getting 4 different quotes and you want to ask all of those contractors relatively the same questions. And depending on what the answers are to those questions, that could play a role in which contractor you end up selecting. I think too many homeowners just get their quotes and they'll compare things like the price and maybe the warranty, which those are 2 good things to compare. And they'll compare other things like the systems that they're offering and so on. But I think that some of the questions on this questionnaire will allow you to maybe get a little bit deeper than, surface level and really get to ask the contractor a few questions to allow you to select the best contractor in your area. So that's the first thing that we give folks, and that's what I'm going to offer to you tonight. The other 2 gifts that we give folks, we're going to keep a secret for now, and that is only for folks that sign up for our website, newhvacguide.com. But one of those gifts is that questionnaire, and for the first time, I'm going to give it to you guys. I'm not trying to make any. I just thought it would play well with tonight's theme, Ultimate Guide to HVAC, buying HVAC. And I just really think that would be a good, helpful way for you to compare those contractors. So again, I've dropped my email in the chat, and just send me a quick email and we'll get your email address and we'll send that to everybody. I'm not going to spam you. I'm not even going to collect your email. I promise. I'm just, anybody that sends us that email, I'm going to send you that gift, if you will. So that brings me to my next point. Yiba says, love your channel. You've been more helpful than any other AC YouTuber. Thanks, pal. I really appreciate that. Maria says, I think sometimes, I'm sorry. SFL Maria 28 says, I think sometimes people just get a bad one. All my neighbors have that brand. That might be true too. There's always a chance of getting a lemon, right? But yeah, so when you are comparing contractors, I do think that there are some things that, again, we want the load calculation. Another thing that I think is overlooked way too much in our industry, and that is asking that contractor for a proof of insurance and a copy of their license. Um, some contractors, that might be too big of a headache for them to even offer that. I would argue, especially if you're in an area where you've got options. Now, if you live in an area where there's only 2 or 3 contractors in your area and they're all butt heads, unfortunately, you're gonna have to deal with a butt head probably, right? But if you live in an area where you've got options and you've got a contractor that won't even provide you a COI or a copy of their license, that's a problem. That's a red flag out the gate. And the other thing I tell folks all the time is blame it on your cousin. Blame me. Blame your cousin that lives in Virginia that does heating and air. And of course, your contractor might see this too, but blame your cousin. And just tell him my cousin told me to make sure that I get these things. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but if you could just and that for most good contractors, it's not that big a deal. But I don't think homeowners do that enough. I think that it's way too late once they find out the bad news. They found out that there's holes in their walls and the contractor's not going to return and they've tore up a bunch of stuff. And then, oh, by the way, they're not even licensed and insured. And now what? My gosh, wouldn't it have been great to just take an extra moment and ask for that stuff up front? Let's see. We had that brand for 20 years, no problems at my mom's house. That's why I bought it. Ryan says, I look up the license online myself before I even call a contractor. That is great. Some states do have, including the one I live in, have the option of being able to look up the license of any contractor. Unfortunately, not every state has that. In fact, some states, I still think there's 8 or 9 states where you don't even need a license to practice our trade to this day, which is very interesting to me. Whereas some states will throw you in jail for doing unlicensed contracting work. And then the flip side of that coin is some states don't even require it at the end of the day. It's a different attitude, I guess, different way of living at the end of the day. So, but that's great that you live in a state that you have that option. What do you guys think? Is there any deal breakers? Anything that when you are talking to a contractor, maybe it's one you've talked to in the past and they did do something and that was a deal breaker, but just anything that is a deal breaker for you, for me, that would be a deal breaker. If that company would not even offer a license or a COI up front, that's a little bit of a red flag for me right there. Most of the recognized heating and air companies here are not interested in customer purchase system installations, need to find a good licensed installer who also does work on the side. Not easy. Yeah. I've done videos fit on the pros and cons of doing those, systems that you can buy online and so on. And there are reasons other than greed that contractors do, especially if they can stay busy without doing that kind of work, they will avoid it. And I'll be completely honest with you. We were one of them. We had, the biggest thing for us, it was, if there was an issue, it was hard for me to go to bat. It was hard for me to call, because if the customer bought that system from me and there was a problem out the gate, by gosh, I knew who to pick up the phone and yell at. But at the end of the day, if they bought it online and now there's a problem with that system, it kind of made me look bad. It didn't necessarily make them look bad or the company they bought it from look bad. But that's just one scenario. There's a handful. Keith says, are AC soft starts a good investment, or these products avoid manufacturers' warranties? I don't want to say they don't void that they don't void any warranties, Keith. They are good in certain situations. There are some situations where you have no choice. So especially if you have that system installed with a backup generator, you may have no choice, because when that system kicks on, it may, kick breakers, or even, stop the generator in some manner. So the load is way too high on that first startup. And so a soft start with a single stage system would be the only option you would have, warranty or not. So, but I definitely would check before I install one. Um, if, if it's still under warranty, because I'd hate for you to do something to void your warranty when you're just trying to make the system be better, right? Legit contractors are proud of being licensed and insured, and as usually pointed out, also BBB accreditation. Yeah, Jeff, I'll say this. I know of contractors in my area, and I shouldn't even call them contractors. There are guys that run around and say licensed and insured. They'll put it on their Facebook posts, they'll put it on their business cards, and they're actually not. Here in the state of Virginia, you can look them up. I can look them up. In fact, I've had folks sit in job interviews, and they'll say, yeah, I'm a master electrician. I'll be like, really? Interesting. And right there in the job interview, I pull up the website to see if they actually are licensed. And I had one guy, he told me he was a master electrician and a master gas fitter to run gas lines, and he was lying through his teeth. And I caught him right there in the middle of the job interview. So just because they say they're licensed and insured, I agree with you. It's something to advertise, and it's something to be proud of, especially for some of these folks that are just starting out. But just because they say it doesn't always mean it's true, right? Bob says Texas requires an HVAC license. You don't want to get caught without it. I think Texas is one of the ones where I've heard guys getting in big trouble, meaning maybe even handcuffs if they're doing certain things that they shouldn't on that front. I don't know if it's just doing unlicensed work or what they were doing, but I have heard stories from down there, Bob. Ryan says if they don't know their product lineup is a deal breaker, if I know more about the product than they do, that's scary and also not uncommon, right? There are folks out there that are selling stuff. A lot of guys will sell in fact, I know a couple of them personally where they sell just the single stage, the 14 SEER, the most budget friendly option that company offers. And then anything above and beyond that, they really don't know much about it because they don't even really sell it at the end of the day. And even if they do sell it or offer it, it's not something they do enough of it, and they have no motivation to go learn the ins and outs of that product. But that's a really, really good point, and I can understand why that might be a deal breaker. Ghost says, would you choose a Linux system with 10-year parts, 10-year labor for $15,000, or go with a Daikin system for $12,000 with a 10-year parts and 1-year labor? Well, I'll turn that back on you, Ghost. And I would say if you do end up going with the Daikin, because I'm a Daikin lover, we all know that, go back to them and say, hey, the Linux folks are offering me an extended labor warranty. Is that something that I can get with you? And just so that way you can compare apples to apples. With a $3,000 cost difference, you might be able to get an extended labor warranty with the Daikin system for still significantly less money, even if you have to pay a little more than that $12,000. Ryan says another deal breaker is if they can't step through their installation. If they can't step through their installation process and how they determine a good install. Also, if they did not have recent pictures of their work to show me. So funny you say that, Ryan. Those other gifts that I said that I would keep a secret, one of them is an actual step-by-step process checklist of the installation. So I will not be offering that. You have to sign up for our website, at least for now, to get that. But that's just so funny that you pointed that out. So anybody that joined us later, if you joined us more recent, we are offering a gift that I've never offered anybody before, and that is a questionnaire you can use when you're interviewing contractors, and it's an in-depth questionnaire, being able to compare apples to apples, and some of the questions that we actually, when we help people on our website, newhvacguide.com, we use some of those questions to get a little further, little more deep than skin deep or surface level, right? If it's one thing to say, hey, are you licensed? Hey, what's your warranty? Hey, what's your price? Some of those more in-depth questions allowing you to really get in there. And I'm not even saying you got to ask every one of these questions, but it might give you an idea of some questions you want to ask as you're comparing these companies. Yiba says, is that company Maytag? It is not. Although Maytag HVAC systems have historically been made by a company by Nordon, and Nordon is one of the only companies that I have publicly bashed, or Nortech, I think is what they're called now. I've publicly bashed them on our YouTube channel only because they really socked it to me a couple times when it came to warranties. When I had systems that they would just not honor their warranty. They would look for reasons to not honor their warranty, and it really left a bad taste in my mouth. And to this day, they're one of the only. I try not to bash a bunch of companies. I try not to make enemies in our industry, but as far as I'm concerned, they burned that bridge, not me. Ryan says, additionally, a deal breaker was not offering a long-term labor warranty, even if I have to pay extra for it. Major red flag. I had several contractors that said they would never offer them. Yeah, I talked to a guy today. They said the exact same thing. He said, I'm not interested in offering a labor warranty. And we talked about the pros and cons. And for him, the cons far outweigh the pros when offering those warranties. And there are some pros and cons to it. Yiba says, are ream units any good? I'm limited in Florida as for online purchases. Only a few can be sold to me here. I can't buy Lennox or any of the better units. I have friends that really like ream, Yiba. I've got one friend that only sells ream and won't sell anything else, and he has his reasons. I think, most heating and air brands are sort of like cars. You like Ford, I like Chevrolet, and you go by your experiences. And it's really the only reason that Daikin is a sponsor of our show, because that's who we sold, and I had nothing but good experiences. And I can't say that about some of the other brands. And they were the first manufacturer and the only one that I ever approached to be a sponsor of our show. I've had two approach me, actually three approach me since then. But they were the first ones that I approached because I actually believed in them. So back to your question about ream, there are guys that really like ream, Ryan says, makes me think they don't trust their product. Yiba says, in Florida, HVAC stores won't even sell to you unless you're licensed. Most states are that way. Wink says, I got a $30,000, I guess that says $30,000 job coming up. But in last minute, the customer said the FEMA is going to pay me. How you feel about that? I think I should kick the can down the road. I would want FEMA to pay me up front, if I'm being honest. Or at least have something in writing saying they're going to pay me. Somebody needs to be on the hook for that. The homeowner should be on the hook for it if FEMA doesn't pay for it, right? Especially if it goes in their house. So maybe that's the way to handle that. Get a contract with the homeowner. And at the end of the day, if the homeowner pays you, then they can be reimbursed by FEMA, right? I guess. I mean, I'm just speculating. I actually don't even know. Thank you for the gift. I'm going to skip Jeff's comment there. SFL says, thanks for the gift. Yep. So again, if you send me your emails, guys, I will send you that questionnaire as a gift to you guys. Maria says, I have also heard good things about Brian if you're on a budget, but I have not personally used them yet. I've got a guy here local to us that I don't want to say we're friends, but we're good acquaintances, and he's a big Bryant lover. SFL says, if I need to do a renovation as a goal or gal, I think it means goal, I always research everything that needs to be done, so I know that the contractor is taking me for a ride. I don't mind paying a little more, but for above code. Good insight. Yiba says, great answer. Thanks, pal. You can buy Mitsubishi, Daikin, Fujitsu, LG, Samsung, Goodman, Bosch, etc. online. There are many reputable brands online. Keep looking online. Fit says, received an old school quote for Bryant preferred 2.5 ton single stage with variable speed air handler for $13,500! Exclamation point. That sent me looking for competitive options online and independent installers. I think we're in the time of year right now where, I mean, I don't know how folks are doing in your area, if it's already starting to get kind of cold. Maybe they're out of their lull, but here in Virginia, guys are starting to get, they're slower. We're kind of between summer and winter, and you might be able to get a deal out of them where when they're in the middle of the summer, they're not used to, I mean, they're not interested in doing a deal. They're like, here's my price, and if you don't want it, I'm on to the next one, right? They're just super busy. Supply and demand, as they always like to point out. So FEMA has always been great. I actually have never done a job for FEMA, but maybe that's a good thing. Meaning we've never had any, big disasters here. Those of you that are working in some of those areas and down in Florida and North Carolina that have recently had some tragedy, our prayers definitely go out to those folks. I've never had to deal with any of that as far as, especially with my business. Pretty sad, and thank you guys that are working in those areas and taking care of folks. Bryant and Carrier are equal brands. Hard to say it's a value brand. Payne would be their budget brand for Carrier Enterprises. Yeah, Payne is definitely their most budget friendly. Josh won't want me to push the DIY websites for just Google those, and Josh won't let me, or won't want me to push them. I don't really care. I'm just not going to push any of them. I set up an affiliate agreement with HVAC Direct, but we haven't really done much with them. But I don't really know much about any of them. I just know the one in particular that I've had a little bit of history with. And then we'll just get off of that. So again, if you did join late, we are offering that gift. It's something I've never offered before. Maybe we'll do it again. Especially depending on the reception we get, but it's just a questionnaire that we give out to folks when they sign up for our website as a freebie, as a gift. And I'm going to give that to anybody that sends me their email tonight. And I'll probably do it for the next couple days. If you see this video in the future, just stay tuned and join us on another live show, and maybe we'll do it again. But we're not going to do it forever. I guess is my point in saying that. It's more just to kind of help folks, and it's just it'll be one more thing we'd have to keep up with, if I'm being completely honest with you. And I don't have a very big team. It's only a couple of us right now. So Eva says, thank you for the prayers. It's been rough for us Floridians. I can't imagine. I mean, the things that have been happening this year, I don't know that I've because y'all tell me, but like growing up, they would all take different paths, but they almost all seem to kind of go down the Gulf, down in the Caribbean, and kind of swing up Florida and the Carolinas, and then kind of go off. Some of them would come more inland. Some of them would kind of stay off the coast a little more. But the ones this year seem to be doing all kinds of crazy things, coming through the Gulf of Mexico. Some of them going right up like Alabama, over into the almost like the Appalachian Mountains, right up through there. It's been interesting to see the paths that these storms are taking. And I know that's not HVAC related, so I apologize, especially if you don't live in those areas or care, but it's just been interesting. It's sad and interesting at the same time. Ghost says, what is the average starting cost of systems in your area right now for a full replacement? Here in Virginia, I mean, you're going to be looking at definitely an easy 10K, probably. Depending on the capacity, depending on the type of system you buy. I don't think it's unheard of for systems to be 10 or 12,000 these days. Uh, Things have just gotten so expensive in the last, 4 or 5 years. If we were to have the same conversation, literally 5 years ago, systems were literally half of what they are now. Like literally, we're seeing systems today that are being sold for 12 or 14,000 that literally 5 years ago would have been sold for 6 or 7 by the contractor out the door. And it's just crazy, the inflation, that folks think, oh well, it's just contractors being greedy. I really don't think it is. I think that just across the board, gas prices are about the only thing that I've seen that finally stabilized a little bit. I remember a couple years ago they started getting really high again, and they finally kind of settled back a little bit. So that was nice to see. But that doesn't change the fact that everything else, I mean, where they get these numbers, and this is not, I'm not trying to be political, but when folks are like, oh, well, inflation's only 6 or 7% higher and groceries are like double what they used to be, that's not 6 or 7% higher. That's 100% higher. It's just crazy to me. Eva says, a while back, I made an absurd comment and you made a video about my comment. I apologize. I was being a troll, sort of. You're a great man. Oh, thanks, pal. I don't even know what you're talking about, but thank you very much. I was probably being a troll back. So I appreciate your apology. And that's awesome. MV says, my condensate line is about 15 feet long and runs outside. The trap is at the end of the PVC pipe and outside. Would I be better off putting a trap close to the coil? Oh, weird. Okay. So you're saying it runs 15 feet and then they put a P trap on it? I wonder why they did that, would be my first question. That is interesting. I don't even know that I've ever even seen that in my entire career. I've seen, traps further down the line for different reasons, or maybe they had no reason, but that's interesting. I think to answer your question, typically the answer is yes. We would see the trap closer to the coil. There are some brands that will go so far as to say, depending on the static pressure of the air, that they want that trap to not be right at the coil. They do want a little bit of distance and make sure it's a little bit, deep and so on, so it holds that water. If it's too close to the coil and the static is too high in the air, I've seen systems that will literally turn on and pull the water out of that trap. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, that's interesting that you're that I don't know that I've ever even seen that. So that's pretty crazy. So that's bad. I'm reading through your list, Ryan. I'm going to leave that alone. Good enough, man. We've had a good turnout tonight. I think we were pushing 40 people at one point, and I'll be completely honest with you guys. A few weeks ago, I think it was just me and Ryan, and I had tried to move the channel to I tried to move the show to its own channel, and we were trying to do a few other things, and ultimately decided maybe that wasn't the best move, and that's why you're seeing my fat face. We're actually casting to both channels right now, and I think I'm also casting to our LinkedIn right now as well, although I don't know that anybody's watching me there. But I do appreciate your support. At the end of the day, the Daikin trip, for example, that we went to last week, and it was more than just a Daikin trip, by the way. We were able to meet with folks that have done some pretty crazy things in our industry and been behind some pretty crazy closed doors, if I can say that. And so, but doing things like that are only possible because of you guys. And I really, really do appreciate your support. If you're not a subscriber, I would, personally, I would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. That always helps. And again, we we'll be wrapping up soon, but before we get to any of that, do me a favor and, make sure you send me your email address. I'll put my email, or my team's email in the chat again. So if you want that free gift, which is a questionnaire for contractors, make sure you send me your email. But let's do this before we're not wrapping up yet, so don't go anywhere. But one of the things I like to do is, we know there's some bad apples in our industry, right? We know there's some folks that are up to no good. If you know a good apple, if you know a good electrician, plumber, or heating and air company, do me a favor, drop their name into the chat and where they're located in the country. And that's going to do two things. The first thing is, you're going to show them some love, right? Let's show the good ones some love. But the second thing it's going to do is, you never know, depending on where you are in the country, you may actually show them a little bit more than love. Somebody in your area could see your comment and you might actually be able to send some business their way. So drop the name of any of those companies in the chat and where they're located in the country, and we will highlight it on the screen over here. Let's see. Make sure I don't miss any of your comments here. You and all on board, have a good week. Have a good night, Gary. Appreciate you, man. Maria says, as a property manager, I love learning about this stuff. Awesome. Where are you located, Maria? If you don't mind me asking. I was in property management for 6 years, maybe. I worked for a company. I was their heating and air guy. And then I eventually got promoted to a facilities manager over 4 properties at my last job. And I actually enjoyed it. I only started my own business because I didn't like having a boss. And I bet you're an amazing property manager, but the one I worked for was not amazing. She tried to tow my own car once, people. So anyway, Fit says, thanks for your videos and keep producing informative content. Thanks, pal. Appreciate your support. Josh, I hope the recent uptick in views makes you want to keep this going. I think having it back on the main channel makes the most sense since you have so many subscribers there. Glad it bounced back. Me too, pal. We were questioning things for a moment there. Jeff says Bass Air. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. Maybe it's Base Air, but we'll say Bass Air in Fayetteville, North Carolina. You folks must be doing something right, because Jeff is giving you a shout out. So hello to those folks. And if you're in Fayetteville, make sure you give those folks a shot. Ryan says Cortland at Super Cool and AKA HVAC Technology on YouTube. Yeah, I've seen some of his stuff. He's a pretty sharp fella. So if you're in he's in Charlotte. Yeah, okay, there it is. Ryan says Charlotte area. So if you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, look those folks up. Cortland is a pretty sharp fella. He's one of those like new school guys, right? He's not afraid to learn some of the new cool stuff coming out, right? Maria says Missouri, outside of St. Louis. Nice. I've actually got a really good friend there in St. Louis doing radon mitigation. He joins us on our website. We have a mastermind for small business owners, and he is a sharp cookie and doing huge things too. So it's pretty cool. Ryan says he's great. Awesome. Good enough. Good enough. That said, if you like the flying solo shows, I intentionally, when we started casting to both channels again, I said, you know what, I'm going to do some different topics, but it's going to just be me here for at least for a little bit. We've got some folks that I'd love to have back on our show again, specifically. But I wanted to fly solo this week, and I will be flying solo at least again next week. Now, next week, let me think here. So next week, no, I don't fly out until Wednesday. Okay, so next week I should be good. I'll be here. I got a trip I'm going on next week. I'm going to a conference for one of the heating and air brands, and they're having a big kudoo, as my mom used to. I think it was a kudoo is what she would call it. But they're having a big event down in Atlanta, and so we're going down there. So that'll be a lot of fun. And in the Battery area, and if any of you know what that is, It's near the Braves stadium, and they've rented out a bunch of stuff there, and they're, gonna show off their products. So that's gonna be a lot of fun, I think. But I'll be here next week answering your questions live. Come up with a few questions for me between now and then. It's not hard to stump me. Ryan does it all the time. But you know, I would say but between now and then, come up with a question or two and try to stump me. Ryan says, any HVAC YouTubers you thinking about inviting on the channel? I'll say this: anybody and everybody is welcome on my channel. Ryan, I will tell you that without mentioning names, there are some folks that well, let me back up. Maybe I shouldn't say anybody and everybody. I only want to have folks on our channel that are here for the right reasons, and they want to, they want to project a good message, and they want to give folks good information. And if they're not aligned with that, that's okay. They can be aligned with whatever they want to be aligned with. But so that said, I don't know that I have anybody specific. I know you actually have better relationships with some of these folks than I do. They can certainly reach out to me. And because I've actually, some of my best friends now here on not just YouTube world but HVAC world are because of were a guest on our show. I just talked to Tad a couple days ago. We were talking about some other stuff other than YouTube, but yeah, he's a pretty fun guy. I don't know, he just makes me laugh every time. So if you guys haven't seen the show I did with Tad Fuller from Taddy Digest YouTube channel, definitely go check that one out. Ryan says, I recommend. Yeah, he's one. Tad will never see this, but if he ever does, Tad always has a spot on our channel. He always has a home here. Brian says, hey Josh, thanks for the great info. Brian from Central California, been in the trade for 4 years. Thanks, pal. Yeah, awesome, man. I can't imagine what you deal with. I know California, you guys have rules and regulations that, either you're ahead of us or some of us may never even see some of the stuff you guys deal with out there. So appreciate you being here. And again, anybody that's seeing this, please hit that like button. That helps us out, man. Philip says, got my Daikin atmosphere installed. Nice. But the thermostat doesn't work yet. Daikin forgot to send the S21 wire harness. Got it. Okay. So are you talking about I guess you're talking about the Daikin one. It's got to have that adapter for that to be able to operate with that. But that's awesome, man. The atmosphere is there are ductless mini splits, and then there are there's that upper echelon of premium systems, and the atmosphere is, one of those. So good enough. And again, so we're covering all our bases FTC wise. Daikin is one of the sponsors on our channel. So yes, I am biased. So good enough. Well, we're going to end on that. Ryan says he's going to send me some names, and I certainly welcome that. So I appreciate that. That said, yeah, we're going to be back next Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. If you, let's do this. If you've got something that specifically you want us to do a show on, leave a comment in the chat or on this video in the comment section if you watch this after the fact. And we're going to try to do some different things here. We're trying to mix things up, as you can tell from tonight's theme and the gifts that we're giving out. We're trying to do some. I really want to elevate the show and it be the best show on the on the internet when it comes to HVAC. And I think we're close to that, but I don't know if we're quite the best. And I want to be the best. So I want to be a great home for good information for you folks. And it's part of the reason I keep it live. It's part of the reason I take questions live. It's not easy always, right? But it is part of the reason I do that. So I do want to test one thing. I just want to make sure that the screen share does work, because as you guys know that join us every week, sometimes that doesn't. So let me I don't know. Let me see. Since Ryan is in Charlotte, let me just type Charlotte HVAC, and then let me try to share this tab. Did it switch? It's not working, guys. It's not working again. What did I do wrong there? Hold on one second here. Share screen. Is it going to work? Nope, not working. Okay, well that helps me out. That tells me the couple tweaks I made tonight did not work. So, and that's okay. We didn't need it tonight, but some weeks I want to show you guys what's on my screen, and the software I'm using is still not operating like I need it to. So, anyway, that said, we'll be back next week. Make it a great week. We'll see you then. Take care.